Okay, so this demo is going to go through how to create a really simple Flash animation, one that you could use for another project. For instance, you could export it and then bring it into Final Cut and green screen a background out, or you can just have it as a final piece if you wanted it to. Just something you can add in for your motion graphics. So we're going to start here at Action Script 2.0. Gonna look down here real quick and talk about our timeline. So this is basically just how many cells you have. And right now we're looking down at the bottom. It says 24 FPS, which are frames per second. We're going to change that to maybe like 12. You can mess with that, but obviously the less frames per second, the less you have to draw to make a full second of film. But this basically functions like layers. So right now we're just going to start with our background layer. And actually what I'm going to do so I can screen this out later is I'm going to go ahead and just make a box. And I'm going to change this box to a green. Go ahead and paint bucket it. Okay, and then I'm going to lock that layer. That's just going to be my background. Okay. Now, one thing you might want to do, my black arrow here, I can go ahead. I'm going to unlock that for a second longer. I can go ahead and move this around with my black arrow. This is kind of similar to Illustrator. If I go down here to my free transform tool, what I'm able to do here is shrink up that window, and I can actually have it so it fills exactly my workspace. So there we go. Now I'm going to lock it, and I'm going to create a new layer down here. So I'm actually going to unlock it one more second, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create like a 12 frame animation. So if you were going to make one that was 2 minutes long, obviously you'd have to times 12 by 120 seconds. So I'm just going to drag this cell out. What I'm going to do is bring it back and drop it. And what that does is allow me to extend that green background, which I'm then going to key out later on when I bring it into Final Cut. And then I'm going to lock it. Okay. Now, if you were going to do a green character, you'd probably want to use like a blue and then use like a different kind of keyer to get that background out. On this next layer, I'm going to use this first cell, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to draw a character. I'm going to change my color over here for that paintbrush. Now, paintbrush, you can change your brush size over here. You can change the style of it. You can also use a wake, and that's pressure sensitivity right here. So it says use pressure. For right now, I'm just using a mouse. So I'm just going to draw like a really simple character. And I am actually going beyond that green box and the white box because I'm going to end up kind of cropping it off a little bit. And I need this thing to be filled so that if I don't fill it, say for instance I do something like this, where it's like a half circle, and I go out here, I'm like, okay, I want this character to be blue. It won't let me fill it, but here, okay, it's a close shape, I can do that. So, go ahead and switch, go to black, and I'm going to go to another layer. So this is going to be my body. I'm going to drag the body out and back, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. And on that new layer, I'm going to go ahead and just draw my eyes for this character. So, brand new layer. Now you can really draw whatever you want in this case. It doesn't have to be, a guy with eyes. You can draw, anything. You can draw a car that's moving. Again, I'm just going ahead and using those basic tools, paintbrush, and my arrows. Now the reason I put the eyes on another layer is so that later on I can go ahead and animate the eyes a little bit. Now you could do this literally cell by cell. You could change these things every time. One thing to do here is if you right click on a cell, you can insert blank keyframe, and what that does, it gives you the next cell is going to be totally empty. So you could actually keep drawing those eyes every time. And what you would want to use in that case is this thing called onion skin. So if I turn on onion skins, you can see what it's doing as I go to the next cell. You can kind of see the ghost of the previous one. So say on this next cell, I want to just slightly modify the eyes. And I could keep doing that. The other option is if you hit F5, I'm sorry, it's not F5, F6, it's going to duplicate that previous cell. And then now I'm working with just that one by itself. I'm going to turn off the onion skins for a second. I'm just going to use my eraser to erase out. And not what I wanted to do there, because I'm going to lock that previous layer so I don't mess with it. And then I'll get rid of a little bit more of it. Maybe change the shape of the eyes a little bit here. can go back and just kind of redraw. Oops. Just Command Z will undo it. Command Z on this program is going to just continuously go back. Okay, so now let's kind of take a look and see what my character is doing. Over 3 frames, just a really, really simple animation there. So we're not going to go too much further. But again, you could make as many layers as you want, and you could title these too. So this one could be eyes. Next one could be mouth. Okay, so let's maybe draw something on the mouth. Start with a different color. And again, these are all editable, so you know I could even easily go and F6 this. F6, I want to say is insert frame. No, it's not. Insert keyframe. That's the one right there. So insert keyframe is the right click in case your F6 isn't working, which depends on your keyboard. So there we go. There's the animation so far. And again, like, you know, another tool you can use is your black arrow just to move stuff around. A really easy way then to get this thing to animate. So now let's see what it's doing. There we go, right? And then another tool that's going to be really useful is your transform tool. So here, I can drag it out, make it a little bigger, F6. On the new one, F6, new one, F6. And I can also drag around with that tool too, so you can see. So this is like a good way if you want to do like talking or something. But again, anything you can imagine that you could draw, boom, right here. And then you could even like add it, you know, audio to it later. So see, we've talked about that black arrow tool, which allows you to click stuff. White arrow, similar to Illustrator. So if I go and I click on, let's see, I click on a shape, you see it. So I clicked in the cell there. So if I click on another cell, you're seeing those anchor points. And this is just like Illustrator, where I can go ahead and modify, right? So grab those handles, and I can mess with that. There's your pen tool set. Okay, convert anchor point tool. We should be kind of familiar with that. You can change the anchors that way as well. So again, black arrow moves, white subselection tool, which is our direct selection in Illustrator. You can move those points, and then we have our transform tool. Some of these I don't really use very often, so those are kind of the basics. You're more than welcome to mess around. Paintbrush tool, I'm going to use that a lot to draw shapes. Again, if it's not a closed shape, though, that is going to be an issue, because then you're not going to be able to fill it. You have to go and literally paint it. So here, like if I wanted to fill this one, keep going to green. Might be a hole in that. Oh, it's on a different layer, duh. So that would actually have to be on a different layer. I could find out easily what layer that's on just by hitting the eyes. Okay, so the eyeballs kind of function like Photoshop. The locks down here function, you know, similar to Photoshop or Illustrator too. And then from there, we talked about onion skin. So again, it's able to kind of give you a ghost effect. You can move these little points here to kind of tell you how far or how little you want to see into the future and the previous, you know, set for that character. So from here, if I just hit return, I'm able to play this thing. And for play, it's up in control. So you can go loop playback, and now this thing will just play on a loop constantly. All right, so there we go. I hit return to stop. I can also go and test my movie. And this kind of tells me, this is command return as far as hotkeys. And that gives me like, you know, a separate window of it, and it's going to play on loop. From there, say this was the animation I wanted to use. Now I'm going to go File, and we'll export movie. And we'll say, okay, QuickTime to our desktop. Biggest face animation. Save. And I'm just not even going to mess with anything. So export. Okay, it's complete. And now, depending on what's going on, so here it is. Okay, I'm going to double click it. I think it's going to convert it, pretty sure, which is fine. It's going to take a second then to open up. Let's see what happens here. And basically, once you convert it, then you can bring it in and, you know, mess with it on any program. So here it is, opening up, and you'll probably have to save it again. So go File, Save As, and save it again as whatever kind of animation, because it's probably just an old file type that it's exporting out as. So I was going to open up Final Cut to kind of show you how to do some green screening with this, which is really, really simple. So meantime, I'll just save this as. One thing I recommend is always saving these flash files to your desktop, not your documents, because sometimes the computer, in my experiences, has had issues finding those files later on. So we're having some issues here. So probably have another demo for the green screening.